Cayman, what do you
Yes.
say we jump into some news with a story that you sent me, a little bit before we went live? Bit of a fucking weird one. Um, this is getting kind of into the weeds of the video game industry, but I think it's a very interesting thing that's happening and something that I think we will see ripples of in
Mm,
ways that we don't quite know yet. And
yeah.
that's Unity is going to start charging developers for downloads. If you don't know what Unity is a game development software that tons of games are built on. As an example, before we kind of get into the weeds of this story, games like Among Us, Fall Guys, Untitled Goose Game, Cuphead, Hollow Knight, all these games were built within Unity. So they only run because of Unity. So kind of have that as some context for this story. I'm pulling this story from Brendan Sinclair at gamesindustry.biz. Unity is adding a new charge for every time a game using the Unity engine is installed, the company announced today. Starting on January 1st of next year, a Unity runtime fee will be charged to any game that has passed a revenue threshold in the past year and a lifetime install count. The amount of the fee and the thresholds in question vary depending on the type of Unity subscription the developer has. For the sake of clarity, I'm going to skip like what the different fees are for different pricing models of Unity and things like that, and go on to say that essentially, if you have sold a lot of games in the past and you have a lot of kind of revenue that you've made, you're going to be charged uh, uh, less money. But if you've kind of not really made a name for yourself, and they're going to be charging you a little bit more, which I think is kind of backwards,
Mm,
if I'm understanding it correctly. And so essentially they say, quote, "We chose this because each time a game is downloaded, the Unity runtime is also installed. Also, we believe that an initial install-based fee allows creators to keep the ongoing financial gains from player engagement, unlike a revenue share." End quote. Unity said that its runtime code has billions of monthly downloads. And additionally, they said that it's retiring. It's a subscription tier. That's not relevant to what we're talking about. But essentially, Unity is now going to be charging developers every time their game is downloaded, not necessarily every time it's purchased. Why does this matter? You might ask. Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, anytime bundles are sold where games are being sold at a deep, deep discount, especially for like charity drives, things like that, where Humble Bundle, these kinds of things where people can sometimes choose what they want to pay to get these games. That now, if even though the developer might not be making money from a game being downloaded, they're now going to have to start paying Unity. So the reason that came and found this, a developer was like, "Hey, we don't know when the game's coming out now because we need to figure this shit out."
here,
So Cayman, passing it to you.
yeah, I'll read it. So this comes from the devs behind Aggro Crab. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Aggro Crab. It's like a fighting game with crabs. It's really fun. Definitely go look them up. They're really fun people. Either way, this is what they post. It said, "Hey gamers, today Unity, the engine we use to make our games, announced that they'll soon be taking a fee from developers for every copy of the game installed over a certain threshold, regardless of how that copy was obtained." That's very important. Guess who has a somewhat highly anticipated game coming to Xbox Game Pass in 2024? That's right, it's us and a lot of the other developers. That means Another Crab's Treasure, which is the sequel to Aggro Crab. Um, let's see. Will be free to install for the 25 million Game Pass subscribers. If a fraction of those users download our game, Unity could take a fee that puts an enormous dent in our income and threatens the sustainability of our business. And that's before we even think about sales on other platforms or pirated installs of our game or even multiple installs by the same user because it's not differentiating. So if someone pirates it, this is me talking, not them. If someone
Yeah.
pirates a game, the developers are still going to be charged for it. The decision puts us, this is them speaking, the decision puts us and countless other studios in a position where we might not be able to justify using Unity for our future titles. If these changes aren't rolled back, we'll be heavily considering abandoning our wealth of Unity expertise we've accumulated over the years and starting from scratch in a new engine, which is really something we'd rather not do. On behalf of the dev community, we're calling on Unity to reverse the latest in the string of short-sighted decisions that seem to prioritize shareholders over their product's actual users. They finish by saying, I fucking hate it here. Aggro crab. That's them. It's
Yeah.
them speaking. So that being said, yeah, a couple things there. Like we mentioned, if a game is pirated, the devs are punished for it. If you uninstall, reinstall, the devs get punished for that. If you have multiple people who play out of the same console or whatever, devs are punished. Game Pass, demos, PlayStation Plus, Humble Bundle deals, Steam sales, any sale, doesn't matter. As long as the game gets downloaded, they will take a hit. And the big thing here is they address the biggest point, which is prioritizing shareholders, which I think is very interesting. This reminds me, Patrick, of a situation that popped up in a quest line of Starfield, in which you have to take on one of these big corporations and do corporation shit. There's a whole storyline with corporations. You know, it reminded me of this is that like that's like we're edging closer to this dystopian corporate run world in which corporations will do whatever the fuck they want. Doesn't fucking matter. Um, and I think this is a sign of like this won't be if this is a success for Unity. You can guarantee that this is going to pop up elsewhere.
Yeah.
Unity. It's also worth pointing out that Unity is considered to be the most user-friendly game engine or game creator that you can use because Unity apparently is just much more user friendly, and it's what you can do with it with lower knowledge based on how to develop games. It's just better for that. Obviously, there's other things you can use like Unreal Engine stuff like that, but apparently that's way more high caliber. That's why you see Unreal Engine being used by larger third party studios, unlike Unity. So Unity's normal base are indie devs. They're not running at a Microsoft level of or Sony level or EA or 2K. They don't have the bankroll to be able to do that. A lot of these games were crowdfunded.
Yeah.
And the fact that these games were now punishing indie devs.
The crazy thing to me, I did skip it, but I do actually want to mention from the story. So essentially, because I kind of stumbled through it because I went off script, but the fees vary with Unity personal developers having to pay the most for every install above the threshold at 20 cents, while Unity enterprise accounts have to pay the least 1 cent for every install above 2 million. And so it's like the smaller your account is, the more you have to pay because they want to maximize their profit. So it's like these companies like AgroCrab, I don't know what kind of Unity account they have, but like they're a smaller company. So they're not one of these like AAA developers using Unity, which is what the 1 cent for every install is probably meant for. What a fucking crazy decision, because I just don't see how a developer chooses to do that. Like all of their revenue models, all of their like forecasting models, this wasn't part of the deal. So
Mhm.
now like it might be a better investment to cut everything and start over in like an Epic built thing, or going over to like Unreal, building your own fucking thing. Like I can't help but wonder if Unity rolls this back, because if a lot of developers go, fuck you, we're out, then they're making even less money. But if this is just for stockholders, I don't know that they will.
So I think the other stat, now this comes from Unity themselves during an investor call in 2022. They say, and this is a quote from them on their site: the Gaming Report 2022 draws on fresh original data from the 230,000 developers. 230,000 developers using Unity right now who make and operate over, and this is in 2022, so that number's only increased, both have only increased, over
Mhm.
750,000 games using the Unity engine and the Unity gaming services portfolio of products. Meaning, that this doesn't impact 10 games being made through Unity. Now, sure, of those 750,000 games, how many are actually hitting that number? But maybe not a lot. But
Yeah, we can't know that.
yeah, there's a significant number of games that you have actively played that the
For
developers that
sure.
you supported are, and they're paying Unity to use all of this stuff. So it's not like they're getting all this shit for free. They're paying Unity for assets, for certain things, and all of that stuff, right? So it's not like Unity's some charity case. It's like, no, 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 we need to start charging because, we've got to that point. Like, no, that's not the case. They are making money. They're now going to be making more money
Yeah.
off of this.
And there was another Rami Ishmael. He's a game developer, an indie game developer. He kind of broke this down in a tweet, saying like demos are now risky for devs, DRM free games are now risky for devs. He also says updates are now risky for devs because I guess you're triggering another download from Unity. So it's like, so what? So they're gonna start weighing the cost benefit of updating their game. I just I don't know. I feel like this obviously we don't understand like the true business side of this industry because neither of us are game developers, but we understand it from an enthusiast level. And both of us are seeing so many game developers tweet about this, how this is fucking like code red, that I would be shocked if this stays as like what Unity does. I just feel like they have to reverse this. Otherwise, there's so many games are going to be massively delayed, and Unity's going to lose that money because they're going to go build their game in a different engine, right?
Or I think this is where we might have a disconnect on like our belief system because I'm way more cynical. Um, what could end up happening is it could just be like everything else that happens. Other companies go, well, if they're going to do it, here's what we'll do, and we'll match or we'll be real close. So the cost benefit to you isn't big enough for you to switch. And you're
Maybe
stuck, and
so
we're
like
making more money and because it's all about our shareholders, because all the people who've invested. So here's what you could do if you are interested. It's something I saw earlier today that I thought was an interesting way to do it. Invest in these companies, become a shareholder yourself, gain power, and then use the power that you have alongside everyone else's voices to shut this shit down. Because their companies are focused on what are the shareholders saying. If there's shareholder backlash for improper treatment of the people who make this worth it, like, we can push back with our wallets. It just means we have to buy chunks of companies out and force them to do our bidding. Unlike all the other shitty people who do that and force them to do negative things to make money, we force them to do positive. It is a route. It would take a lot of people getting on board, but you know,
so what you're saying is a large number of the population would have to have some unity to get together and buy some shares of Unity
mm,
to take them down from the inside. I like it.
yeah, I don't know.
I just
I think that we won't really, because this is supposed to go into effect January 1st. Obviously, we'll know closer to January 1st what happens, but I don't see this being rescinded. But I am curious come March, April, come investor call time,
yeah.
quarterly call to see like how bad this situation looks for Unity.
I do worry that if this becomes one of those things where like the development community is really loud for a moment and maybe a handful of them start their game over somewhere else or but enough of them are just like shit. It's going to cost us so much more money to do this other thing. I guess we just have to eat this cost now. Then yeah, we start seeing Unreal saying, "Oh, well, if you come build with us, it'll only be 10 cents a download." Or
Yeah.
Epic's, "Oh, if you come build with us, it'll only be 9 cents a download." And it's like
But the
just
race to
feels
the bottom,
gross
isn't going to end at 0 cents. That's the
for
problem.
sure. Yeah. I hope that Unity reverses this, but yeah, I you're probably right that capitalism will quote unquote win here and developers will just bear the brunt of that cost.